Today we're going to use masking to create three simple Christmas cards. And one of the things that I like about masking is that it creates a lot of depth to your cards without creating a lot of layers. So to start with, I stamped my greeting, which is the thing I want to be in the foreground, or I want it to be masked, onto a very thin piece of paper, kind of almost the cheaper the better for this. And I'm just tearing around it to give it a nice natural edge. And that will create a little bit of a border around my stamped image. So there I have my mask. That's what I'll use to protect my image. So after I've created the mask, the next step is just to stamp my greeting. And I'll just kind of eyeball that on there. Press down, lift up, and there's my greeting. And I'm going to take this mask that I created and a little bit of removable adhesive on it so I can get it off at the end. And just line it up kind of as best I can. It doesn't, since I made kind of a big border around there, it doesn't really matter. But I just want to make sure I create a nice, line up a little bit there. To stamp the background then, which is going to appear to be in the background because of my masks, I'm going to use a little bit of gray ink and these snowflakes from the Club Scrap Silent Night collection. This greeting is also from Silent Night. And I've done a few of these now, and I've noticed that I like it just a little bit better when there's quite a bit of space around, the snowflakes not too close to each other. So I'm going to do two nice big ones there. I'll do this little one in here. I'll do the little one down here. Notice that when I'm stamping, I'm trying to do a little bit on the mask just so the snowflakes go up to the image, but not getting too crazy close. Do another little bit there to sort of balance it out. I think I'm going to need a little bit of this bigger snowflake there. A little bit of that one there. And a little bit there. Now we take our mask off. We can still see our Merry Christmas nice and clear. The snowflakes haven't touched it. We could even get closer to it if we really wanted to. I just prefer the way this looks. To finish it off, I want to put a little more depth and dimension here. So I'm going to use this foam applicator and this orchid ink that I used to stamp the greeting. I'm going to just grab a little bit of that ink, and I want to start on my scratch paper and pull kind of in a circular motion towards the card. When I think getting a little lighter, I want to make it darker, I can just pull towards that. Rotate it. Now the masks, if you're using them a lot, you can definitely reuse them over and over again until kind of the paper gets saturated with ink. If it's a wooden stamp, sometimes I'll actually use a little bit of that removable adhesive and repositionable adhesive, and I'll actually stick it to the wooden block, so the next time I go to use that image, I won't have to redo another stamp or another mask. Some images can be quite detailed, and it might take you some time to cut them out if that's what you're trying to achieve. These I just had to rip, so it's not a big deal to do a new one. But there, we'll see now we have a really nice border around there. It kind of makes everything sort of pull together and gives it a little bit of an edge. And that was all achieved on one layer of cardstock without any other thickness added to the card. For the second card, I'm going to actually do 2 layers of masking. First, I'm going to stamp this frame image, and that's going to kind of accomplish the same thing that the inked edge did in the previous one. It's just to sort of set it off. But this time I'm going to use this frame stamp. This is from the Club Scrap Versailles collection. I'm going to lay it on there, and I'm going to just walk my fingers all the way around the rubber edges, just so I know I've inked the whole stamp. Ripped it off. I missed a few areas, but that's okay. It adds to the charm. The ink has got a nice distressed look to it anyway, so it'll be just fine. And I'm going to stamp my greeting now. Merry Christmas. There we go. I'm going to use my same mask from the last card for my Merry Christmas. And I've already made a mask for the frame that you can tell I've used before. Now in this case I actually tore out the inside of it, so I did use a ruler to line up on the edge of the frame there, and tore it against the ruler so I'd get a rough edge but still a relatively straight edge. And I'm just going to start by stamping. We'll peel off their masks. This adhesive will just rub off my finger. Make sure your finger is clean before you do that so you don't have little things left over. For our last card, we'll actually use the simplest mask of all, which is just some torn paper. And I'm just going to sort of put a little bit of wave in it, but not a lot. I don't want any jagged edges in this one, or big, huge curves. That looks pretty good. It's maybe a little more jagged than I'd like, so I'll just kind of straighten that out. Okay. And I'm just going to put a little bit of removable adhesive there and sort of position it so I get maybe a little bit down the card there. Now I don't want these to match up exactly, so I think I'm actually going to flip this over and maybe even shift it this way a little bit. I think that looks good. Now the only trick with this one is you want to make sure that the gap between your pieces and the image that you pick, that the gap is large enough that at least some of your images are going to appear partially whole or mostly whole. If you put them too close together and you just kind of see little snippets, that's not a look I care for. If you put them too far apart, it looks a little kind of awkwardly spaced. These snowflakes are also from Club Scrap, one of the Christmas collections from a few years ago. And I'm using dark blue ink here on this pale blue, which is from the Destinations kit from Club Scrap. Again, it's a travel kit. I'm using it for Christmas. I don't really pay much attention to the themes. I use the kits and the papers and they inspire me. So there I have some snowflakes, and now to add a little more depth, I'm going to take my ink applicator again and rub it. And again, I'm going to start on the scrap paper here and in a circular motion kind of go towards the center. And it's not going to look like much right now, but what we're creating is a dark edge where the paper ends, and it's going to stay lighter in the center, which will create kind of a nice illusion of 3 dimensions or depth. So it'll be the dark and the light. If I peel that back, I can see that there's a nice edge there. I can make it a little darker if I want. I like the way that is. Sometimes when I'm working, I'll rotate this around if it's a little more natural position for me. I usually pull down and towards me instead of up. And because of that, I sort of have a little blob there that I'm sort of trying to blend in a little bit. And when we tear this off, we'll see sort of this really nice effect. And to finish that off, I'm just going to add a greeting from this set. Season's Greetings. I've also used this technique elsewhere on my blog, and I'll link to that in the blog posting for this particular card as well.